Hello and welcome back to my channel. My name is Derek Main and I read and write. It's sort of a simple way to put it. Today I'm going to be reading some lines from Leaves of Grass by Walt Whitman. This is the Penguin Classics Deluxe Edition with the introduction by Harold Bloom, and it is the original facsimile of the original self-published poetry book. Most significant, I think, poetry book in American letters. But I'm not going to actually go into any sort of critical theory or criticism. That's not what today's for. I wrestled a lot with how to approach Leaves of Grass, a work that not only means a lot to me, but I would also say is, during this particular time, I've been going through helping me quite a bit. And here's what I mean by that. It's the spring, and unfortunately I've been around quite a bit of death and endings. Of course, throughout the world we see that, and then in small ways, but significant to me in my own family and friends and whatnot. So one of the things about Leaves of Grass that is most impactful, and it's not one of the things, it's the thing that's most impactful to me, is the meditation on death, life, rebirth, what our existence means. And it gives me the kind of solace that I imagine a Christian might find with the idea of heaven, or the Buddhist might find with the idea of enlightenment. I don't have those touchstones. I'm not a Christian, I'm not a Buddhist. But something about Leaves of Grass is a religious text to me. Not all of it. What's great about Leaves of Grass is it is at times messy, it is at times incoherent, and also it is at times in conflict with itself. And that is our proof, if we need any, that it was written by a man, by a person, by someone who lived and felt this as we feel it, experience it as we are able to experience it. So what I thought I'd do is, I've got all these tabs, but I haven't looked back at them since I tabbed them. And I'm going to go through and read these lines, and maybe comment a little bit on how it is that Leaves of Grass has helped me with one of the most singular, anxiety-inducing and difficult concepts to grasp for any one human, but in particular I have had a significant amount of trouble with it, which is the idea of not existing anymore. So not just specific to death, which is whether you are the one doing the dying or the one watching the dying, is its own sadness and end. I'm actually very specifically hung up on nothingness and not existing. And Walt Whitman, through Leaves of Grass, gives me a strength, a courage, a love that helps me get through those times. And since I'm in one of those times, I thought it would be nice to share. Very beginning of Song of Myself lays it out. I celebrate myself, and what I assume, you shall assume. For every atom belonging to me as good belongs to you. So I'll stop there and say that the companion, the feeling riding shotgun of my fear of not existing, is that fear of being alone. alone in not existing gives me a wretched anxiety that this brief time we're here, where I am alone only in my own consciousness, ratchets it up, that fear of not existing alone. And here when he says, for every atom belonging to me as good belongs to you, the transference and the sharing of the life force, the energy, and that it is all one, and that our consciousness is connected and is one consciousness, separated by an illusion that we must spend our lives, our spiritual lives, trying to work to break through. It makes me feel less alone. It makes me feel less scared. I'm going to be referencing the line numbers here. 45. Lack one lacks both, and the unseen is proven by the seen, till that becomes unseen and receives proof in its turn. No one knows what's going to happen. It's this private and lonely thing that we will all do. It is the last thing that we will do. I love Lauren Bacall, the famous actress, had a great line. They asked her about fear of death, and she said, "Oh, death, that's the last thing I want to do." I love this, very creative. But it is the last thing we're going to do, and we are going to do it alone. We will be surrounded, hopefully, by people that we love or love us, or we will be surrounded at least by other souls, by other people, or we may not. It may be that we are truly in that physical plane in that moment alone, whether it's driving down a road or alone in your home. However it happens, it is something that all of us will face as a singular event in our life. And it's that unseen, that next realm, whatever happens next, to us, with us, what happens to this stuff, that is so frightful because it is unseen. And so I'm scared of nothingness specifically. And this gives me strength because it says the unseen is proved by the seen. And some of this might, I started off saying it's religious text. Some of this might sound a little preachy. This is stuff that helps me if you're ever going through that process either of grief or of dreading, of course, your own eventual passing. Page line 90. A child said, "What is the grass?" fetching it to me with full hands. How could I answer the child? I do not know what it is any more than he. I guess it must be the flag of my disposition, out of hopeful green stuff woven. $115. What do you think has become of the young and old men? And what do you think has become of the women and children? They are alive and well somewhere. The smallest sprout shows there is really no death. And if ever there was, it led forward life and does not wait at the end to arrest it, and ceased the moment life appeared. All goes onward and outward, and nothing collapses. and to die is different from what anyone supposed, and luckier. Has anyone supposed it lucky to be born? I hasten to inform him or her it is just as lucky to die, and I know it. The smallest sprout shows there is really no death. And if ever there was, it led forward life and does not wait at the end to arrest it, and ceased the moment life appeared. I'll close so it's clear that I'm talking. I take that in part, and that's a very heavy and dense, but simple, beautiful lines, right? And that's the best writing. But I take that in part to mean that because there is life, there is no death in the way that we are perhaps thinking of it. Because as soon as life appears, it's the negation of death. 125. The earth good, and the stars good, and their adjuncts all good. I am not an earth, nor an adjunct of an earth. I am the mate and companion of people, all just as immortal and fathomless as myself. They do not know how immortal, but I know. And I should close up. I am susceptible not to our preachers, not to our traditional or standard religious leaders. I am susceptible to a perfect line. I am susceptible to a story. I am susceptible to a poetry or a fiction. Because I find that is the best way for me to receive messages that I need to receive. As I go through a private grief during a time of a public grief, this is the message I need to hear. And I hope that at some point maybe you'll look through this video, which I anticipate will not last much longer because it is a heavy subject matter. And maybe when you're going through that time, maybe some of these words will comfort you as well. And of course, as a reader, I have to say the most comforting thing would be to have this nearby. It helps for me. 325. I am of old and young, of the foolish as much as the wise, regardless of others, ever regardful of others, maternal as well as paternal, a child as well as a man, stuffed with the stuff that is coarse, and stuffed with the stuff that is fine. One of the great nations, the nation of many nations, the smallest the same, and the largest the same, a southerner soon as a northerner, a planter nonchalant and hospitable, a Yankee bound my own way, ready for trade, my joints the limberest joints on earth and the sternest joints on earth, a Kentuckian walking the vale of the elk-horn in my deerskin leggings, a boatman over the lakes or bays or along coast, a Hoosier, a Badger, a Buckeye, a Louisianian or Georgian, a poke easy from sandhills and pines, at home on Canadian show shoes, or up in the bush, or with fishermen off Newfoundland. At home in the fleet of ice boats, sailing with the rest and tacking. At home on the hills of Vermont, or in the woods of Maine, or the Texas ranch. Comrade of Californians, comrade of free Northwesterners, loving their big proportions. Comrade of raftsmen and coalmen, comrade of all who shake hands and welcome to drink and meet. A learner with the simplest, a teacher of the thoughtfulest, a novice, beginning, experient of myriads of seasons, of every hue and trade and rank, of every caste and religion, not merely of the New World, but of Africa, Europe, or Asia, a wandering savage, a farmer, mechanic, or artist, a gentleman, sailor, lover, or Quaker, a prisoner, fancy man, rowdy, lawyer, physician, or priest. I resist anything better than my own diversity, and breathe the air and leave plenty after me, and am not stuck up, and am in my place. The moth and the fish eggs are in their place. The suns I see and the suns I cannot see are in their place. The palpable is in its place, and the impalpable is in its place. This goes back to the oneness. To me, it speaks to the diversity of who we are. We're so many things. We change constantly. We should always embrace that change, embrace this cycle, this ride that we are on. And then I'm going to read one more line, beginning of 31 on page 62. I believe a leaf of grass is no less than the journey work of the stars. And I'm going to tell you something. Not only do I believe that as well, and not only did Walt Whitman 150, however many odd years ago, when he put that down, he was speaking to me now as I speak to you now. It has a permanence. It is time traveling. It is a message that can comfort us during difficult times, both internal and external. And I hope everyone is well. And thank you so much for watching.